Welcome back to Fold in the Cheese. It is your boy, K-Troll, on the mic today. And if you're watching the live action footage on YouTube, you're seeing there's also J-Troll to my left, screen right. And we are joined, as always, by the true Jay Billis of the crew, Ethan Gelfand. What is up, E?
I'm going to give myself a Jim Nance, but I guess we did him in football, so that's fine. So does that mean J-Troll is also on the mic?
J-Troll is on the mic.
Oh, it's a hot mic. Yeah,
wow.
Hot mic in here.
Wow.
We are crammed into this makeshift office, and
Yes.
it's about to get hot and spicy up in here in March Madness.
In
March Madness term.
Is this going to have an explicit on this episode, or what's going on here? I don't know.
Child-approved, child-friendly terminology in here. No, we have a special episode. First off, you didn't even scoff at the fact that I made you a dookie. You're just like, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Jay Billis is pretty smart.
You know what? At this point, he's way too well respected that I'm like, you know what? I can't hate him for the fact that he went to Duke. I like the guy. And I'm not going to lie. And we've told this story, I don't know if we told it on air, but Duke has risen like a half step for me just because I now have a slight connection to them. So they've risen a half step.
True.
Duke sucks for life.
Yeah.
I'm I have to say about that.
I'm with Jamie. Duke sucks for life on this side of the camera.
You do say that, but you were the first, once the bracket came out, you were the first to text our friend Shane and say, I do hate Duke, but they kind of got screwed that they only got a 5 seed. So
they did. Let's be honest. They did. They were postseason at the end of the season. They're ranked 12th, and they end up as a 5 seed behind Tennessee. Behind who else was I fired up? Kansas State. I was like,
who else was I fired
Why
up?
are these teams ahead of Duke right now? They won the ACC tournament. They've been hot recently. I think that's kind of a ripoff, but alas, we'll save that analysis for later in the show.
They
here.
did have a bad loss to Wake Forest. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. Go Wake Forest. And so I'm rocking Wake Forest. Speaking of which, this is a throwback. CP3, Chris Paul, Wake Forest. I was going to say class of 2005, but did not graduate in 2005. Left in 2005 to go pro for a Hall of Fame career. J-Troll over here is rocking CP3 in the pros with the Los Angeles Clippers, as you will see. So we're double CP3 on this side of the cam. Ethan, I got
a different 3.
Another 3. D Wade, and that's in honor of Marquette pulling a 2 seed this year.
Yes.
With I was going to drop this bomb on Jamie later because I don't think she knows this. With head coach Shaka Smart.
That's
right. Shaka's coaching Marquette, and all of her data analysis just blew up in her head. Right?
I know. I didn't factor Shaka in.
Crumbling. Well, fun. When I was a freshman, Jamie, you were a sophomore. That's when Josh Howard was a senior at Wake, and obviously we had a great run that year. I explicitly remember in the we played Marquette, and Josh Howard and Dwayne Wade just battled it out. They each dropped like 30. It was spectacular. And Dwayne Wade had one of the epic performances in the tournament that year. So he was always a player I loved to watch. And even though he wasn't a Celtic and we had some big battles with him in the pros, I always loved his game just because he wasn't like a flashy shooter. He was athletic. He could get to the rim, rebound. I loved his game and I loved him. So got to rep him.
I love how you just had to work in there that I'm older than you, though.
Yep.
And
vicariously, you were a sophomore. Yeah, I was
a lot older than you.
Vicariously, much older than me. We're also joined, as we often are, by our boy Skip Prosser, RIP forever. Skip, gotta love him. Ethan's got him going there too. So that's our boy. He's gonna be telling us if we had a good call or a bad call. And the reason J-Troll is on the mic today is, as you well know, Ethan and I have come up with a foolproof way to win your bracket. However, that is being challenged this year by data nerd extraordinaire J-Troll. She has spent a lot of time coming up with the perfect analysis for your brackets. And I want her to tell you a little bit about her method and the madness behind it well. And then we'll get into whose is better.
Well, this is really the test because what I really wanted to do was figure out, I know nothing about basketball. So can I make up for my lack of knowledge about college basketball? I won't say nothing. Nothing, but it pretty much ends like,
you've been a fan
like 20 years ago. Like I can drop some names on you these days. I don't know. But I wanted to see if I could make up for my lack of expertise in that area with just my expertise in the data analysis area. So I may or may not have been up until like 2:00 in the morning last night working on this, perfecting it.
You're like, Ethan and Kemper are recording tomorrow. I need to stay up and just crush them. And
I didn't even know we were recording. I think we just decided I was going to be on here. I just wanted to do it.
God knows she put in enough work. She deserves to be on the podcast.
It's 100% procrastination. I will be honest with that. But I feel like this was worth it. If I can somehow manage to use this data to beat this one right here, then it's all worth it.
But did you know, like the return on that is he's gonna, break a lot of stuff in your house. So
Probably.
you gotta weigh it. You gotta weigh
Probably.
It will cost you money in the form of broken materials.
It's worth it. Like you're never gonna get me on a fantasy football podcast. That's not my thing. But you start talking about brackets, like I can show up and talk about brackets. I like it.
Spreadsheet, we'll crush it.
She's got beautiful mind spreadsheet action going on. So here are some key differences between the two models here. Last year, Ethan and I did a huge data dump as well, and we dove into things like seeding and preseason rankings and end of season rankings and historical trends and conferences and what happens when teams get to the Final Four. What's the likelihood of them actually taking home the trophy? Jamie's analysis, I thought, was actually very worthwhile and interesting. She's combing through actual statistics. So she's combing through full NCAA. Where does each team who made the tournament stack up to every other team in the country on things like field goal percentage, free throw percentage, turnovers, assists, rebounds, whatever, and strength of schedule, things like that. So there's a lot more actual statistical data in hers, whereas ours is historical data based on trends of seeding and things like that. Yes, Ethan, I see a question over there from Dwayne Wade. Yes.
So Jamie, just quick for you. So when you're doing all this data analysis, is it kind of like, okay, so our segment in fantasy football, blind resumes, where we give each other stats for players and you'd see like, who would you take? And a lot of the times it's the lesser known guys as opposed to your big name guys. So with this stat, with your analysis, it's the same kind of sense where it's like a blind resume. So like, look at this team. Like they as a team, they shoot 80% from the line, 38 from three, 52 overall versus, X. And it could be Wright State versus Kansas. Is that how you kind of looked at it?
Yep, exactly. It's fully, there's no opinion. It is all completely data based. Okay. So what I first did was come up with figuring out okay, what are the stats that are important? So you have to kind of dig into, I had 15 years of data that I pulled in on all the teams that were in the tournament. I was doing some fancy pivot tables to kind of summarize the data to figure out.
Pivoting. All I know is the basketball term of pivoting.
It's important. If you want to win, you like to win. So I just combed through all the data to find out okay, what are the stats that actually, not just using my own, what I would guess that this stat, I actually went in and picked the ones that showed to have, based on how far the team actually made it in the tournament, the biggest impact looking back. Okay. Now, of course, past performance, not always indicative of the future, but you can kind of garner quite a bit from looking at it that way. And then I made my own kind of composite score basically based off of that and applied it to the teams that are in this year. And then I just pressed sort by rank. So I wasn't even looking at them. I just sorted it to see okay, here's who it is. And then I went into my bracket, and each time, I looked at the two different teams that were playing against each other, and I just picked the one that had the higher composite score. So there was absolutely no judgment whatsoever, except for the fact that I did maybe change my algorithm a tiny, tiny bit because I wanted Duke to lose. I made one small tweak so I could get them to lose a little bit earlier. But other than that, it was totally judgment based.
I hope you have 3 16 seeds with those blind resumes. I just hope so bad.
No.
Real quick, funny, when you said when you did your spreadsheets and you hit sort, it made me think of that Office episode where Michael and Pam are looking at their numbers when they had the Michael Scott Paper Company. It's all right, crunch the numbers again. Because we're in the red, so and
crunch them,
crunch them again.
Right.
That's not it.
Crunch it again. No, you crunched all the numbers. I like it.
So she did give different weights to different statistics. That does play an impact here. It's not just an aggregate of all the stats that are out there, but it's interesting the formula she's come up with, and the teams are not unknown teams, and her bracket's not going to look goofy. It's not going to be a bunch of 15s in the Final Four or anything crazy. There are still some good upsets though, but that's March Madness, so. She's either absolutely nailed it or is completely way off and has no bearing on what's going to happen.
We'll see. We'll know soon enough.
We will know soon enough. In fact, the first play-in games start tonight. The first 4 starts tonight. So let's fire this thing up. Why don't we start with a couple of last year's savory 16 keys to tournament success? Ethan and I came up with 16 for you. keys to tournament success. We're going to go through a few of these, and then we'll jump over to Jamie and let her kind of give some of her data. And then in the end, I'll give you a profile of a champion and a profile of a runner-up. I'll give you some examples. Jamie will do the same. Give us her final four. We'll see what works out best. All right.
Love it.
Okay. Number one, we talked a lot about the play-in games, and they're in fact starting tonight. So we found that in the last 7 or 8 years since they've been doing this, almost every single year, a play-in team has won not just their play-in game, but also a first-round game. So the first key to tournament success, pick one and only one play-in team to win a first-round game as well. This needs to be an 11 seed because now they do 11s and 16s. 16 has not played in and won.
Well, they alternate between like 11s, 12s, but then also 16s. Yes. So yeah, as Kemper said, they've been doing it since 2011. And honestly, well, not honestly. So this was my area of expertise. I went and dove back, looked at every tournament since 11 up until now to see the trends for the playing games. And every year, a team that has won in the first four then will advance to the round of 32. Except there was only 1 year that did not happen. That was 2019. But every other year, you had a team advance to at least the round of 62. So in 2011, the first year they did the first four, they made it all the way to the final four, and that was Butler. Or excuse me, that was USC. USC lost to Butler. So I mean, that was a huge run.
Yep.
In 2012, we had who was 2012? I can't
VCU went first four to final four, I think, or George Mason, one of those two teams.
Oh, sorry, I can't read my own spreadsheet. It was VCU, correct? Sorry, VCU lost to Butler in the final four. They lost. USC lost to VCU in the first four. In 2012, it was University of Southern Florida who made it to the third round, so the Sweet 16, where they lost to 13-seeded Ohio State. In 2013, we had LaSalle, who was a 13 seed, go all the way to the Sweet 16, where they lost to Wichita State. So then 2014, we had 11-seeded Tennessee. They made it to the Sweet 16 as well, where they lost to the 2 seed. 2015, 11-seeded Dayton made it to the second round, where they lost to the 3rd seed. 2016, we saw Wichita State. So again, it's these kind of mid-major schools that are getting in there, just happy to be there, and they're just kind of riding that wave. 2017, we had a bigger name, USC. They upset number 6-seeded SMU. 2018, once again, it was another big name. Syracuse was in the first four, and they made it all the way to the Sweet 16, where they lost to Jamie's favorite Duke. 2019, as we mentioned, was the 1 year there was no winner advancing. 2021, this was a big one as well, where UC, because again, 2020, no COVID tournament.
No tournament.
2021, UCLA made it all the way to the Final Four, where they lost to the 1 seed Gonzaga. And then last year, of course, we had Notre Dame making it to the second round, where they lost to the 3rd-seeded Texas Tech Red Raiders.
That's right. So
I mean, there's a lot of success. So you got to pick at least one. So this year, I think the hot name might be Pitt. I don't want to give anybody saying anything, but Pitt seems to be a hot one.
I like Pitt and I like Nevada. I like both those teams, but they got to win their first 4 games first, and so things might change if Mississippi State wins. I'm not sure I feel as strongly about that. If Nevada loses, I'm afraid of their playing. I'm going to look it up, but if they lose their first round game,
Nevada's playing TCU.
Well, that's the second round, but their playing game is against Arizona State. That's right.
Yeah,
I feel confident they're going to beat Arizona State. Arizona State has been backsliding into the tournament here, but if Nevada wins that game, look out TCU.
Oh, I know you say just one, but this is where the data would tell you.
Uh-oh.
2. I actually think both of those are good picks. I have Nevada and Pitt winning in the round after the play-ins. Yep.
I mean, we just said minimum of one.
This will be the first
discrepancy.
Determiner,
In fact, I don't think that's ever happened. I think, or maybe it's very rare because we've said pick one and only one of these teams.
Yes, there's been no time where 2 first 4 teams have won.
Okay, so here it is.
Let's see.
Already got an upset alert. Okay.
I love it.
Number 2, and we'll get to this in more detail later, but the champion needs to be a preseason top 10 and final rankings top 10. That really narrows it down. There's only about 5 teams that even fit that bill, and so you got to go back and look back at the preseason top 10. You got to look at the final top 10. Final top 10 is usually just going to be your top 2 or 3 seeds, basically. So that's going to be historically very strong indicator.
Yes. So real quick, fun fact about history that was made this year. So do you remember who was preseason number 1 this year?
Yes. And
the
North Carolina.
It was the Zags.
North Carolina.
No, it's North Carolina. They were the preseason number 1 team. And they're the first team in NCAA history to be ranked preseason number 1 and not even make the NCAA tournament. So fun fact.
That's right. And meanwhile, Purdue was unranked and ended up at number 1 for much of the season as well. Yes. So kind of interesting. Rankings team not so hot this year.
By the way, have you seen Purdue star Zach Edey?
Yes, I've watched Purdue basketball. He's massive.
Tree. He is a massive man.
He's not some tall, lanky dude either. He's solid.
He's a big dude. He can literally just dunk it standing up.
Yeah. Just found him. I made the comment that it looked like he was playing pool basketball. Whenever I saw him play, it looks like me in the swimming pool whenever I'm going up, just dunking basically sitting on the rim. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But unanimous All-American, the only unanimous All-American this year.
Makes sense.
Okay. Number 3, don't pick a conference tournament champion to win the whole thing. It's not like it doesn't happen, but it's less common than more. So we're not giving favoritism to conference tournament champions. If they won, fine, but I think it was like 7 out of 20 seasons maybe the last time we checked. So less likely than likely that it will be a conference tournament champion. I don't think that data is something that Jamie looked at much of. We said pick 1 or 2 number 1 seeds to make the Final Four. So the statistics said that the chance of 0 was pretty unlikely. 1 and 2 were around the 40-ish% range. Mm-hmm. And then 3 number 1s was really rare, 10 to 12% maybe. And 4 number 1s has only happened once in the last 20 years. So it was the most likely scenario that 1 or 2 of your Final Four teams are going to be number 1 seeds.
True.
Did your data say anything different from that?
Did your data?
What does your data say?
Look at
your data right now. What does it say?
Look at it.
I got 2 number 1 seeds in my Final Four, so okay. I agree.
Okay.
Yep.
She's okay.
I'm with that.
Okay. All right. Pick a 13 seed to win a game. All right. So this is a tough one because, boy, these are lesser known teams. You're going for a real upset here, but it has happened frequently enough that we feel like out of the 4 matchups between 13 and 4, we like one of them to win. We've got 2 this year that we're keeping our eyes on for different reasons. I like Furman. They're playing Virginia. Virginia keeps everybody close. I expect it to be a close game. Furman has a good track record of winning. They're from a small conference. They've got a couple of stud players. Virginia has a mixed bag in the tournament. They have been obviously the only number 1 seed to ever lose to a 16. They've also won a championship in the last 5 years. So Virginia is both a dangerous team on both sides. Furman could be that team to upset them. The other option I like is Iona because the Rick Pitino factor. And you see Pitino back in the tournament. He's playing UConn, an old Big East foe. I mean, obviously he would love, it's a great narrative. I don't know that the stats back that up, but something to keep an eye on for sure.
Stats don't care about Rick Pitino or
stats don't like him.
All right. Then.
That's the great thing about them. So I disagree on this one. We'll see.
Okay.
You don't have any 13s winning.
I have no 13s winning.
No 13s. Furman's actually their first time in the tournament, so good for them. 13s. It's interesting because obviously, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. Actually, it's coming up next. The 12 seed is always the classic upset that everyone wants to pick. But I mean, the 13 seed is not too far behind in getting those upsets. They have won traditionally 36. They were 36 and 144 as of last year, which is not actually terrible for being a 13 seed. Because then when it drops to 14, it goes down to 24. I mean, 24 wins overall since 1985. Yeah. So 13, and then obviously we're going to talk about 12 here in a second. But 13,
roughly 1 and 4 for the 13 seed, which is the 4 games of each of those. That's why we said pick 1 to win. So then the 12 seed as well. We said pick 1. This is actually a little bit controversial last year because I think the 12 seeded win is the most common picked in office pools. I think you're most common 12s always beat 5s. There's always a couple of them. The truth is, per our data at least, it was 1 per season, 1 per round or per tournament. So don't go too crazy with your 12s. There's a possibility. There have been years where 3 of them have won. I mean, it's certainly possible. The 12s we're keeping an eye on this year. I like Charleston. They're 31-3. Any team that wins that many games, you think of some of these teams like Murray State in the past. You think of the Wichita State teams in the past who come from the Missouri Valley. These teams that come from the small conferences but win almost every single game on their schedule. There's something about the team knowing how to win. They could upset somebody. We like Oral Roberts here as well. Oral Roberts has a lot of the stats that Jamie's looking for. Unfortunately, they play Duke, so I'll let her get into that as well.
Yeah, Oral Roberts was going to be when I did everything. It was a number 12 seed that was coming up over and over again in the top 15 teams. But it all depends on your matchup. So when I actually went in to fill out the bracket, my intention was to take Oral Roberts, but the numbers did not support it. And the hardest thing, what broke my heart the most about it, is because it's Duke that they are playing. And so I will be rooting against the data actively on this one.
Fair.
I chose based on the data, but I will be actively cheering for Oral Roberts in that game. I want them to prove me wrong.
Yes.
I need a flaw in this algorithm.
Well, I did my own algorithm this morning, and Oral Roberts made it to the Elite Eight. So just gonna say
that.
Just gonna say.
But so here's the thing about 12 seeds. So usually it's like, all right, you're usually going to pick at least one or two to win the first round. But then once they make it to the second, where they're going to be more than likely playing a 4 seed, they don't have a terrible record. They're overall in history, they're 13-29 against the 4 seed, which again, comparatively, that's not terrible. And then beyond that, they are 0-20 against the 1. So kind of write them up there. Don't want them to go too far.
Don't have to go, yeah.
if you have a good feeling about a 12, Sweet 16 is a possibility because they have that good record against the 4.
I think VCU is another name. So Charleston and VCU are probably my most likely. Oral Roberts, again, would have been a nice pick, but I think Duke's going to be a tough out in the first round, and that's supported by another one of our metrics here later.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Pick 2 number 11s to win. So one of them, we are probably going to choose one of the play-in games. We mentioned that. Jamie's picked both the play-in games, so she's covered there. I like one of the play-ins. I'd prefer the Nevada game specifically if Nevada wins over Iowa State, I think, or over TCU. But I also like NC State over Creighton, and Creighton has some good metrics, so this makes me a little bit nervous. But the NC State play goes back to another one of our points we're going to make up here, point number 15. So stay tuned on that one. But like NC State over Creighton as well. Not a data-driven, but there are some historical precedents here.
Yes, and overall, the number 11 seed is 98-164, and in that first-round matchup against the 6, they are 60-104. So not terrible, but it's still a good bet to get at least one. And here we're saying pick 2 because, especially with one being that play-in game guy, so watch out for the 11s.
That's right. Likewise, pick 2 number 10s to win against the 7s. This is more of a toss-up type of a game. I personally, this year, I don't love the 10s. There's one of them that I'm okay with and one of them that I'm forcing myself to pick. But Jamie loves one of the 10s.
Is it Penn State?
No.
It's not.
It's Utah State. Go Aggies. I have them going pretty dang far. They're actually going all the way to my Elite 8, I believe.
Wow.
So the data loves them. They love the Aggies, and their matchups are actually pretty preferential to them. So Utah State it is for me. They're pretty much my clincher. If they lose, I'm pretty much out of this whole thing.
Wow. Okay, so you have Utah State making to the Elite 8. So that means you have them obviously winning their first round game against the 7. And then so historically speaking, against the 2 seed, the 10 does not have a bad record. They are 22-40 overall historically against the 2 seed. So that is not too bad.
There you go.
Arizona is a hot number 2. I like them for different reasons, but
then
that's going to be an interesting game in this house, the Utah State Arizona game.
Assuming Utah State can get past Missouri.
Get past Missouri. So then if you take it a step further against the 3 seed, obviously it's a smaller sample size, but they're 4-9. So 44% chance to win that game too. So
that could be Baylor. So look out. Utah State's got to run. Miami did it last year. If you want historical precedent, Miami did it last year. Now that's an ACC team, and we're going to get to them in a minute, but it can happen, and it has happened.
It has.
All right, the 8-9 game is a toss-up, but don't pick a 9 to beat a 1 for whatever reason. 8s can beat 1s, 9s don't.
9s cannot.
What happened last year? This was one of our best calls of the entire tournament. Was we said if an 8 beats a 1, take them all the way to the Final Four. And North Carolina was the 8 to beat a 1, and they went all the way to the championship game, and honestly should have won the game. So we were right on that call. Historically, once they get past that hurdle, they have pretty favorable matchups against 4-5 and against 2-3 as well.
So historically, the 8-9 is literally a toss-up. It's 87-81 in favor of the 8. So again, that's a coin flip. Now, once you get to the 1 seed, the 9 seed is historically 8-73. So not great. Whereas the 8, it's not that much better, but it's better. The 8 is historically 18-71.
Yeah.
So
double what the 9 was.
What you're telling me is there's a chance.
There's a chance. I feel like the 8 over the 1 happened last year. We're probably not going to get one this year. The only one I am looking at is Memphis. I think Memphis is a kind of a dangerous 8 seed, and I think Purdue is a vulnerable 1 seed as well, unfortunately, as much as I love the Boilers. So I am keeping my eyes on Memphis. There are some brackets where I've taken Memphis to make a nice little run, just based on some of the talent they've got and their positioning. But I don't know about the others. Not in love. Penny Hardaway, I'm a huge fan.
So Jamie took out the Rick Pitino effect. What about the Penny Hardaway effect? Does that have any effect?
If Pitino doesn't have an effect, I don't think Penny does.
Data,
not going to give it up for that legend.
Care.
Yeah, doesn't care.
He does not care about Penny. What about Little Penny? He was the best.
I mean,
that was my
Little
hamster's
Penny.
name.
Little Penny.
It's true.
Okay.
That is true.
Right.
Okay, so
wait, time out. But Little Penny, what about Little Sweet? I love Little Sweet now.
It could have been our gecko's name, actually.
Yeah.
Justin Guarini, shout out. American Idol.
There we go.
Okay.
Thanks for Justin Guarini, American Idol. Just kidding.
Shout out. Okay, what do we think? Is Memphis going to beat Purdue? Nah, probably not.
Skip says
okay.
Data says no.
Pick one number 7 team to win 2 games. So we had a trend here where when 7s beat 10s, there was a good enough odds, at least a 1-4 or 1-3, that they were going to beat the 2 as well.
Yes.
So we've got a lot of options here, but the 2 that I'm most interested in personally, Texas A&M is going to potentially face Texas in the second round if they get through. It's an in-state rivalry. I'm not sure what the numbers say. Jamie will back me up on this or not back me up on this, but Texas doesn't have a head coach anymore. That happened mid-season. So I don't know.
Well, I could have been misreading it, but I think the interim, who might be the official new head coach, might have won Coach of the Year because of all the turmoil. But
probably,
anyway.
You darn well should have. Yeah, they came and won they did come in and win the Big 12 title.
They did win the Big 12
championship at least. So something there.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things. Again, one of the drawbacks of the data is that it doesn't take into account things like, head coaching changes and things like that late in the season, unless it shows up in their numbers. Same thing as injuries. So that's one of the big things that is probably going to be my downfall here. But I'm trying to stick with the integrity of the data. But I've got Texas winning that game.
Texas winning that game, yeah. The other one I was open to was Michigan State over Marquette, and the more I looked into Marquette, the more I was impressed by them.
Marquette's pretty good.
You've got Izzo in the tournament, and you've got a team that shoots lights out from 3. That's dangerous in the tournament as well. They could be streaky, hot or cold, but those are the 2 that I'm keeping my eyes on.
So once again, if we're looking historically at the 7 seed, if once they get past the 10, which they have a favorable, it's 101 to 67 over the 10. Once they make it to the 2 seed, it's 30 to 68. So you're talking 1-4 right there, or it's 1-3.
1-3, really about.
So
yeah,
that's there.
That's
possible. If they ever play the 4 seed, they're 4-2 against them. So that's great.
Boom, crush it. That would be like an Elite 8 matchup. That would be
yeah.
Michigan State all the way. Okay, so the 2 games that are kind of toss-ups in the later rounds, the 3-6 and the 4-5, both kind of toss-ups. 1s do really well against 5s and pretty good against 4s, but 5s have a tough time beating 1 specifically. So once you get to that point, I think the point we made last time was if you have a bunch of 1-4, 3-6, combos like that, flip a coin, take a 6 somewhere and just say, hey, why not? Don't just stick to the higher seed in those cases.
The data doesn't flip a coin.
The data flipping coins is all about
flipping
data.
Coins.
The data does not believe and may the odds ever be in your favor. Never saw the Hunger Games.
No.
What does your data say about 3s and 6s? Who's going? Who's not going?
It depends completely. It's not about the seed number specifically. It's my data is more about the specific team. So
remember, it's blind resumes.
Yeah, any given team. Let's see, 3s and 6s. I don't know if I have any 3-6 matchups.
Wow.
Where would I? Oh, I've got Baylor beating Creighton, and I've got Kansas State beating Kentucky. Yeah, I'm not calling any of those upsets.
Okay.
So
all 3.
4-5. You've got a 4. You've got a 5 and Duke beating Tennessee. You've got a 4 in UConn. Go back up. Who's your other 4-5 if you have them?
Who's your other 4-5?
Miami, Indiana. She's got the 4 there, and she's got San Diego State over Virginia. So she's a split on 4s and 5s.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good.
That's fair.
Okay. Point number 13. Number 2 seeds are 35 and 41 against number 1s in the Elite 8. So if you get to the end of the region and it's 1 versus 2, that's also kind of a toss-up. Mm-hmm. So might as well listen to the rest of these trends to see if you've got something that you like in here, or follow Data Pants over here. See what she thinks. She doesn't care about seeds, so she's not going to have an opinion on that. But the one that I'm looking at here personally is Arizona and Bama. That's one of the regions I've got a 1-2 matching up. And I like Arizona a lot for a lot of reasons, including data specifically. But that's the only 1-2 I've got in my whole bracket.
So Bama seems to be everyone's kind of favorite right now, even though I feel like this is the year where there isn't an overwhelming, yep, this is the team. But if there would be one, I think a lot of people are chirping about Bama, even though they've had their own off-court issues, potentially a Moida. But we won't go into that. But interesting facts about the twos. I was listening and I was talking to Kemper off air about this. I was listening to ESPN radio this morning, and they were talking that the twos are actually one of the softest top seeds in the sense that historically speaking, since 1985, only 6 times have all 4 2 seeds made it to the Sweet 16. So I thought that was a very, that's the Sweet 16. That just means surviving the first weekend. And that's only 6 times has it happened that all 4 2 seeds have made it. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. But then if they continue to win, watch out, because then obviously when they play 1, it's a coin toss.
Yeah. And that kind of speaks to the 7 beating 2s occasionally narrative as well. So there's opportunity there for sure. And also, I mean, the 1's got to get there too. They both got to get there. But
it's going to be Arizona that doesn't make it.
It's Utah State. She's all in on Utah State. That's going to be the game in this house that gets pretty contentious.
I love it.
When Arizona's up 30 at halftime, I think
can I just be live streamed in for when you guys watch that game?
We're gonna live it. We'll live it on
live tweeting.
Live tweeting. Okay, 14. So there was a lot of we had some fun with this, but the Big Ten has been the runner-up 7 of the last 21 tournaments.
So many times.
So point 14 is the same as it was last year, which is take Purdue to be the runner-up. I don't know that I love that this year, although they are 1 seed and they do fit most of the other metrics as well. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see them in the championship. I would hate to see them lose, but it could be Purdue. Keep that in mind. Big Ten's done really well to get to the runner-up stage. Number 15.
Well, okay, go with 15 because I'll talk about Purdue again to kind of combo those two things.
Yeah, so 15. This is what I kept saying. Like I like NC State. Miami had that big run. Look out for Duke. The ACC crushes it in this tournament. It is far and away the most winning conference in this tournament.
Unless you're Wake Forest.
And that includes
why do you have to go there?
One and dones, right? That includes all the years that Wake Forest has underachieved their seed.
I'm just saying.
The ACC still has a 66% win percentage in this tournament, and they far outproduce their seed on an annual basis. Not every single one of the teams, but historically speaking, they are the most likely to take a team from a 10, like Miami did last year, to the Final Four or Elite 8.
So you're saying they far outproduce their seed, eh?
They do.
Let's just say they're carried by some certain teams we will not mention. Anyway, yes, Kemper mentioned that it's 66% overall in the history of the tournament. They have a 66 winning percentage. We talked about the Big Ten, Purdue being potential runner-up. They are third, right behind them at 60.1% winning percentage, which is the third highest. The Big East is second with only a 61. So there's a big jump from 1 to 2, but then 2 and 3 are right there. And then there's a big drop off from third overall to fourth, where the Big 12 is at 57.9%. So it's Big Ten is getting wins, and they've had record numbers of teams making it, but they just can't get that final championship. Last Big Ten champion was Michigan State back in 2000. Historically, there's only been 3 champions out of the Big Ten. So it's pretty wild. Whereas if you go to the ACC, it's 13. It's 13
Cleaves. Yeah, it was the ACC and the Big East made up 15 of the 20 previous champions as of last year. And I mean, that was just insane to see that and to remember that. And so the Big East, we've considered a major conference when it comes to basketball because they have such strong history and they perform so well and they're so competitive. But it's really the ACC and the Big East that have dominated, and the stats back that up too. So I'm looking at, again, unfortunately, I'm looking at Duke, especially when they're a 5 seed. I think it's easy for them to outperform their seed. They should have been a 3. So I think they're going to very easily make it to the Sweet 16 and potentially beyond. I think Miami, another 5 seed who won the ACC this year, regular season, has got a strong chance to outproduce their seed. They get Indiana potentially in the second round. They could give Houston some trouble if they make it there as well in the Sweet 16. And then NC State I mentioned as an 11, in part because I just think the ACC knows how to prepare for this kind of stuff based on the level of competition they play every week. But I've got NC State winning at least one game as an 11 too. So that's what my data says.
That's what my data says.
Jamie she doesn't have a drop down for conference.
I don't.
So it does not matter to her.
Nope.
Again, blind resume.
Okay. And the last of these savory 16 points is 3 of your final 4 teams need to have been ranked in the preseason top 25. And that really narrows it down for you based on all the data we've given you. Because it's 75% or more of Final Four teams over the last 20 years have been preseason top 25 teams. And so when you're looking at your bracket, find 3 teams that you really like. As long as they match up and they were in the preseason top 25, send them all the way.
Okay.
And I'll give you the preseason top 25 real quick. As you mentioned, number 1, North Carolina.
Go.
You had Gonzaga, Houston, Kentucky, Kansas, Baylor, Duke, UCLA, Creighton, and Arkansas. That was your top 10.
Arkansas.
Top 10. You've got Tennessee, Texas, Indiana, TCU, Auburn. Those are all tournament teams. Villanova didn't make it. Arizona, Virginia, San Diego State, Oregon, Bama was 20, preseason number 20. Oregon, Michigan, Illinois, Dayton, and Texas Tech. So a bunch of those at the end there didn't make it. But all the way up to Alabama, I mean, most of those teams made the tournament and have a legitimate chance of making it pretty far. Any of those that were ranked could be in your Final Four.
So 3 of my 4 are on that list. Purdue's the only one that isn't.
Yeah. Who's that? Utah State?
Purdue.
Oh,
Purdue. Yeah, Utah State. Purdue.
And Purdue's really only there because I didn't want to take Duke that far. But
yeah.
So you screwed the data on that one. You're like, no.
I didn't screw the data. I just modified the algorithm.
The numbers again.
Crunch again. I re-pressed the button to recrunch them, and it turns out, Purdue beats Duke.
Okay. Fair.
All right,
Fair,
Ethan, give us a profile of a champion. If you're looking for your champion, what are the key stats you should be looking for per our data?
So you have our Savory 16. So that's your profile of a winning bracket. But for your profile of a champion, you have to be ranked in the preseason top 10. Okay. Then after that, you have to be ranked in the top 10 of the final rankings. So yeah, preseason top 10 is great, but as you see, doesn't really necessarily mean too much, aka North Carolina. So ranks top in the final top 10 rankings. You have to be a number 1 seed, overall, because the number 1 seeds have won, and I can tell you that real quick, 24 championships since 1985. So that's pretty big number.
More than half. Yep.
More than half. And then, or you want to be a number 3 seed because, the 2 seeds won 5 times, the 3 seeds won 4 times. So, I mean, they're right there. So if you're not a 1, maybe look at the 3. Obviously, as we talked about, the ACC being performers very, very well in this NCAA tournament. So, preference to the ACC or the Big East. Historically, those have been the best conferences for basketball. So maybe give them a little nudge. We're not going to – Jamie's just covering her ears right now. He's like, no, I don't care where they're from. It doesn't matter.
No data involved.
So if it's the ACC, not a conference tournament champion, but if it's the Big East, we're open to conference tournament champions. Again, it's just wild. It's wild. This is madness. That's why
it was weird. The last ACC team to win the conference tournament championship and the national championship was a 2010 Duke team. Other than that, the ACC tournament champion has not been the overall champion.
True. Well, who won it this year? Duke. Watch out.
I know.
Ooh.
That makes them a tough choice, right?
Yeah. So, Kemp, who fits the bill of this profile?
Based on this profile and taking away the conference affiliation because we don't have a 1 seed from the ACC or the Big East, actually. So we're looking at Gonzaga as a 3. They do fit the bill for preseason top 10 and final top 10. Houston and Kansas are my most likely. They're 1s and 3 seeds. Those are the most likely champions. I'm gravitating toward Houston and Kansas personally. I think Gonzaga's route to get there is brutal. They've got to go through UCLA and Kansas, not to mention potentially Houston.
And they always blow it.
And they always blow it, right? There you go. I do have some other possibilities. So UCLA is a possibility as a 2 seed. So that was one thing that knocked them. The other thing is obviously the big injury to one of their starting guards. Yep. That hurt my confidence because I was going to be pretty big on them as well. I think that hurts them quite a bit. There are some slump busters in here. So we did this last time, but for reasons that go against the data, but we still think they've got a shot. Duke is one of them. They did not finish in the final top 10, but they were preseason top 10. Mm-hmm. They were a conference tourney champ, which can help or hurt. In the ACC, it has historically kind of hurt. But anyway, they're a possibility. Baylor is a possibility as well. Didn't finish in the top 10. In the final top 10, they were preseason top 10. And then Texas and Alabama are 2 high seeds that have a lot of other factors going for them. They weren't in the preseason top 10. Bama was number 20, as we said. So for me, that automatically just you're done, But if you want to bust that slump, if you really feel that strongly about them, they at least have the other metrics going for them.
All right. I like it. Slump busters.
Slump busters.
Slump busters.
What say you?
So talk about your. Oh, sorry. We're going to Jamie's profile of a champion.
I want to hear what she's got for her
Well,
your top teams here.
My top number one team based on the data was
Utah State.
UCLA. So I almost shouldn't say that. I kind of like almost want to take that back because now everybody knows who my champion is in our pool. But I picked UCLA, and I picked it because they have a really good win percentage. They had high strength of schedule. They have a really high profit or margin of winning. Profit margin. Here I go. A really high margin of winning. I'm a big fan of margin, so the more margin, the better. Meaning they win by a lot. They don't have a ton of turnovers. They have a really good free throw percentage. They kind of check all the boxes. Now, I found out today after telling Kemper this is one of the things the data doesn't show, right, is injuries. So that's something that I decided, you know what, we're going to let it stand, because if you start kind of adjusting for, subjective things like that, then it becomes really difficult to rely on the data. So we're just going to let the data speak and see what happens. Okay. But UCLA is my number one. And then I've also got
who they beat.
That's my number one. I'll stick with that.
I just want to know who they beaten. Are they beating Purdue or Utah State?
They are beating Purdue.
Oh, there it is.
Purdue is a runner-up. That fits our model.
So perfect.
No, I'm wrong. It's Alabama. Now, Alabama UCLA is my final game.
Okay. Alabama fits the model as well as a potential.
So my data final four is Alabama, Purdue, Texas, UCLA, which doesn't fit with some of your rules because that's 2 1 seeds against each other and 2 2 seeds against each other. And apparently I should be picking a 3, but I'm going with
okay.
it.
Top 3 seeds are all pretty fair game.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess speaking of Purdue, which is not in Jamie's final game, but let's talk about the profile of a runner-up.
That's right. The runners-up have historically been preseason top 25 as well. And so Purdue is going to have some trouble with this one because they were not ranked in the preseason. They were number 1 for much of the season, but they did not start there. That's going to be difficult. They will be ranked in the top 10 of the final rankings. So that goes to the top 3 seeds narrative. They're most often a 1, 2, or 3 seed. There is a weird preference for the Big Ten. 7 of the last 21, 1/3 of the last runners-up have come from one conference, the Big Ten. So for whatever reason, they keep popping out teams that get there and can't quite get the job done. There is a recent preference for conference tournament champions as well. Once again, Purdue fits that bill. So you think Purdue is going to be the obvious choice here. They're actually in the slump busters category. They were not preseason ranked. So that would be the one slump they'd have to bust to get through there. But if they can get past that one thing holding against them, they could be there. The teams that we think do fit the bill, and this actually is supported by the data too. Alabama is a 1 seed. They were top 25 preseason. They were number 20. They were top 10 in the final rankings, obviously number 1. And they're a 1 seed. So, and a conference champion. Gonzaga, top 25 preseason, top 10 in the final rankings. They're a 3 seed and a conference champion. Yep. Kansas, 1 seed, top 25 preseason, top 10 final rankings, not a tournament champion.
Tournament champion.
Arizona, top 25 preseason, top 10 final rankings, 2 seed, and a tournament champion. So those teams are the most likely to finish in the runners-up per the data there. As the possibilities, and I kind of jumped the gun on Kansas here because they were not tournament champion. Kansas, UCLA, Houston, Baylor, and Duke all fit the rest of this, like top 25 preseason, top 10 in the final rankings or close to it. Duke was 12, Baylor was 11, I think. But Houston, UCLA, they're top 10 as well. You've got some conference champions there. Houston did not win. Baylor did not win. Duke did win. So it's kind of a mixed bag on those possibilities. They don't fit as perfectly.
Okay. Well, I think for our viewers at home that we need to post both of your brackets somewhere because this is going to be spectacular. I have
fight it out.
Yes, and it's going to be amazing. And I can't wait to watch that Utah State game to see how many things get broken or not broken.
They got to beat Missouri first.
This is true, but the data supports it, so it's going to happen.
Yeah, Arizona's got to beat Princeton first, to be fair.
True.
You never know about the Ivy League teams. They're good on the fundamentals.
I'll say if I'm winning, I'll be back next week to gloat a little bit. If I'm not, you will never see me again here. Yeah. I was never here.
Let's be honest. If you're winning, Kemper ain't gonna let you back. Are you serious?
I control this podcast. It's K-Troll on the mic.
Okay. Ethan will give me the link. It's fine.
It's like tuning in from Cabo. Hey.
We have a surprise guest for Kemper. Oh, it's your wife who beat you.
It is.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and what I did not do last year, and I'm going to go ahead and put my money where my mouth is and give my Elite 8 teams, Final Four, and champions. Okay?
Let's go.
Okay.
So I like Alabama and Arizona to come out of their region in the South. I like Arizona to win that game. And
Jamie's
make it to the
definitely
Final Four.
typing this. He's like, I'm confirming
He's
this.
like,
I am just
He's
making
got
sure.
Bama, just not Arizona. All right, in the East, I like Duke and Marquette, and I like Duke to make the Final Four over Marquette. I don't like it. I shouldn't say like.
Yeah,
is
I was
going
gonna
to
say.
I predict. I don't like it, but I predict it.
I don't like it.
I don't like it at all. In the Midwest, I've got Houston and Xavier. I like Texas a lot, but I think they could have trouble with A&M, and they could have trouble with Xavier. Xavier is a data darling. Xavier does pretty well with the data that I crunched, at least.
I was gonna say,
So,
Jamie. I'm looking at Jamie.
Like, not over Texas, they don't. But they don't have a coach anymore. Data supports Xavier over Texas for me. And the 7's got to beat a 2. I'm thinking maybe A&M does it. I have Houston winning that game and making it to the Final Four. And then I've got Kansas and Gonzaga. I liked UCLA a lot for a lot of the reasons Jamie probably liked them too. The injury is just enough for me to give the Zags the edge there, but I've got Kansas making the Final Four. So I have Kansas versus Houston. I have Duke versus Arizona. I like Arizona to make it to the championship, and I'm going in this bracket with Houston, and I'm taking Houston to win it all.
I like this bracket, hedge and betch with my 30 other brackets.
Obviously,
exactly. So he can always say he won.
That I know.
Always, every time.
This is the official folding the cheese March Madness bracket for me.
Yeah.
The one you're claiming for this. Okay,
claiming.
so no more mention. If he tries to mention in my other bracket, just cut him off.
But in my other one,
17 brackets to hedge your bets.
I nailed that in one bracket.
I predicted that 16 seed a lot in my 39th bracket.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's see your Elite 8. Data lady.
Data Elite 8 is where Alabama, Utah State.
Let's go. There they are.
There they are. Houston, Texas.
There's a 1-2.
Texas.
Purdue and Marquette. You took Duke. I'm really surprised that you took Duke over Purdue.
I didn't want to, but
I didn't want to either. Clearly, yeah. Okay, that's that one. I will say
we both want Oral Roberts to win, and we think they could in the first round.
Really, what's their mascot? Go what?
Oral Roberts, what are they? There's some kind of bird, right?
They're a bird.
Yeah.
I can't think.
Like the Lehigh Mountain Hawks.
Yeah,
throwback.
That's a 15 seed.
Who called that one in their bracket?
Yeah,
this one right here.
Jamie has a history of taking Duke to lose the first round, no matter what their seed is, no matter who they play.
I do. I do have a gut bracket too. I did do a gut bracket just to see. I'm almost comparing my gut bracket versus my data bracket to see. And Duke loses in the very first round of my gut bracket. So go Oral Roberts.
Oral Roberts are the Golden Eagles.
I'm not done.
Golden Eagles.
We're
talking about who Oral Roberts is. Give us a break.
Okay, Golden Eagles. Go Golden Eagles.
My podcast. Get off my podcast.
See, birds though have a
Duke has trouble with birds.
Duke has a lot of trouble with birds. So we need to figure out how they sound. Maybe we get that app, the Merlin app, and figure out what the call is for that bird. And then
but how about so speaking of bird mascots, St. Joseph's, there's the Hawks. The mascot literally just flaps his wings the entire game. Can you imagine having to do that?
My shoulders would be so spent on that. Oh my God.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
Continue, Jamie.
Purdue, Marquette, and then Kansas, UCLA. Those are my Elite 8. Final Four, like I said, Alabama, Purdue, Texas, UCLA. Final game, Alabama versus UCLA, with UCLA the winner.
Right.
She has 3 1-2 regions, which is smart, honestly. If you just don't know much about brackets, just take the high seeds in most cases and maybe pick a few upsets.
The data agrees
that way for a reason,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right.
She's trying to get a seat on the tournament selection committee is what she's trying to get here.
Yep.
That would be kind of sweet. All right. So everyone heard it here first. We got the troll matchups. We'll see who will reign supreme, if Jamie will be invited back or not. Very exciting. So Skip is saying she will not be invited back. She will not. It's the best time of the year. March Madness is here. Finally, we got the first 4 games going on tonight. Pool boys are rip roaring right now. So we got lots of clients going to be filming some recap videos going over that, which is going to be spectacular. Maybe we'll have Jamie be a guest spot when those Golden Eagles upset the Dukies, and we'll have her.
I'm ready.
Flap her.
I will buy all the Oral Roberts gear that exists on this planet.
There are 3 T-shirts from 1987 Oral Roberts racquetball championship, and she's going to have it. She's going to have them all.
That's amazing. So fun fact, this is when I was working at Central Michigan. The first round of the tournament, Northern Iowa was playing Michigan State. And I feel like it was a very big seed discrepancy. So my buddies and I thought these were all people who weren't from Michigan at the time. We thought, oh, let's go to the sports bar dressed in Northern Iowa gear. It's going to be spectacular. We almost got in like 10 fights. We learned the Northern Iowa fight song. We had lots of stuff thrown at us. And actually, it was a good game. Michigan State won, but those Northern Iowans.
Kurt Warner. Look out.
Gotta watch out.
So anyway.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Fun fact. So yeah, I can't believe it. I love it. We crunched all the numbers. Jamie's got all of her metrics, the blind resumes, if you will, versus our savory 16. So we're going to be watching the games, see what happens. We'll see if Jamie's invited back. But until next time, keep on folding.
Hold it.